Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to everyone joining us today. While still living the post-COVID-19 effect, yet every day we grow stronger and better by learning something new and unleashing the power of thought and innovation to have a better experience in such difficult times. Even though some of the actions we take today is focusing on COVID-19 response, nevertheless, we have been working for years to plan and execute what we see today, looking for a better future and a more effective government supported by the e-government or digital government. We thank everyone who is taking time to join us in our discussion about the future of the e-government, smart work. And allow me to welcome Engineer Ali Al-Asiri, CEO of the Saudi e-government program Yasser, and Mr. Isam Abu Sulaiman, the Regional Director, GCC, the World Bank.
Thank you, Hisham. Assalamu alaikum. Respected Mr. Isam Abu Sulaiman, World Bank Regional Director for GCC, distinguished guests, dear speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we all have gathered here to discuss about a very important topic, which is going from remote work to smart work in the post-COVID era. So the coronavirus pandemic, since its outbreak in the beginning of 2020, has affected all aspects of life worldwide and caused major economic and social changes, and has necessitated us to coexist in new different ways of living. In 2020, in Saudi Arabia, we moved 94% of the government workforce to work remotely. We've been partnered with tech companies like Microsoft and Cisco Systems to provide collaboration platforms for government to deliver a non-stop business continuity. We've launched my.gov.sa national portal to deliver a one-stop shop for citizens with a unified citizen experience platform, delivering more than 900 e-services to the beneficiaries. And now, with the continuation of this pandemic, many new practices and practical experiences have been found, which can lead the world to safety. Against this backdrop, the Saudi e-government program Yasser, in partnership with the World Bank, have assembled here today to know and discuss with many speakers and decision makers about the new experiences that aim to address the challenges that are facing the world today. I would like, on behalf of the Saudi government program, to thank all of you accepting our invitation. And I feel honored to welcome all of our distinguished guests and speakers for taking a keen part in this important webinar. I hope that we all contribute in building the future of smart work in the post-COVID era and to achieve a common solution which could redress the situation that happened to the world last year. Thank you all. Floor is yours, Hisham.
Thank you, Engineer Ali. Mr. Isam.
Yes, hello everyone. For those who do not know me, I'm Isam Abu Sulaiman, the Director of the World Bank and the GCC. Distinguished Engineer Ali Al-Asiri, the CEO of Saudi e-government program Yasser, and Engineer Hisham Al-Sheikh, Deputy CEO of Yasser. Thank you first for the introductory welcome to this exciting, really, and joint event hosted by the Saudi government e-government program Yasser in partnership with us at the World Bank. Distinguished speakers and invitees, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 pandemic has spread rapidly and brought an unprecedented crisis to the world. In my welcome remarks 8 months ago, earlier at the webinar in June 2020 on the COVID experience seen through the lens of digital, I emphasized the importance of digital infrastructure and digital capabilities for countries to mitigate the crisis as life and work moved online. Today, 8 months after our COVID-19 seminar, my comments are still more relevant than ever, as the disruption from the pandemic continually impact all aspects of social life at unforeseen and unexpected scale. Saudi Arabia and the World Bank have been in partnership since 1974. We are proud of this valued and active partnership where the emphasis is on sharing knowledge, strengthening digital capabilities, and assisting in policies development for leapfrogging towards an inclusive, safe, and dynamic digital economy within the framework of Vision 23 of the Kingdom. In the continued cooperation between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the World Bank, we have explored the trends, opportunities, and challenges for digital government in the COVID era. It is without doubt that we have seen that digital has been a key factor in combating the pandemic and enhancing the resilience of people. And we now witness a new wave of accelerating and scaling up the digital capabilities in government. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, a regional and global leader in the digital space, will share experience today with international partners on the ambitious journey from remote work to smart work in the post-COVID era as an illustrative case for leapfrogging into smart government. Smart work is an opportunity for digital government to increase innovation, well-being, resilience, and efficiency as a model for the future of work in the coming decade that would enhance the service provided for its citizen and the private sector. With the investment in digital capability, digital government can support the transition to smart work. But this would also require thought leadership, cultural change, organizational innovation, and interoperability, and not at least bridging the digital gap so no one is left behind. This takes time, sustained effort, investment, and strong leadership to arrive to the end result and impact the change. Smart work is foresighted to be one of the main trends for the future of work. I'm very happy that we at this webinar will have the opportunity to explore the opportunities and challenges for digital government moving ahead into the future of smart work. It's great to witness the transformation the Kingdom has made on the digital development front, and I am pleased with our partnership on this topic and on many others. Before ending, let me join Engineer Ali Al-Asiri, the CEO of Yasser, and Engineer Hisham Al-Sheikh, his Deputy CEO, and their welcoming remark with a special thanks to the distinguished keynote speakers and the panelists from the UN, Korea, the World Bank, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I wish you a successful webinar and a fruitful discussion, and I'll be relatively learning a lot in today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Isam. Thank you, Engineer Ali, for the introduction. Now we will move into our first panel discussion. The future of smart work throughout the lens of digital world. Remote and smart work is now becoming a global trend all over the world. In a post-COVID-19, majority of employees are expected to work remotely, to have access to work from home or wherever they are. The experience with remote working have come to us with both positive and negative sides. The remote work offers a tremendous opportunity to accelerate the digital transformation towards a smarter government and smart work. We associate smart work with the digitally enabled new opportunities, enhanced creativity, and freedom for individuals that aligns with organizational goals and strategies for the digital economy. To take advantage of these opportunities for smart work, it requires a different mindset, institutional challenges, and different expectations for goals and performance. With that, allow me to welcome our keynote speakers in the first panel, Mr. Vincenzo Acquaro, Chief Digital Government, Division of Public Institution and Digital Government, UNDESA, United Nations. Mr. Yoon Seok Ko, Vice President and Head of Department of Data and Platforms, National Information Society Agency, NIA, South Korea. Dr. Ahmed Al-Zahrani, Deputy Minister, Labor Affairs, Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development, Saudi Arabia. Mr. Clay Lin, Director of Information Technology Services, the World Bank. Gentlemen. Mr. Vincenzo. We'll go in order.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and honor to join you today at this webinar, and I thank the organizers for their kind invitation. During the pandemic, digital technologies have kept societies functioning and people connected. The mere fact that we are holding this webinar today is a tribute to digital technologies and possibility to work remotely. The virus has broken through many cultural and technological barriers that prevent remote work in the past. If in pre-COVID era, the remote or teleworking was a prerogative of tech companies, the pandemic has challenged this status quo. The smart working concept, which is a natural evolution of teleworking, added greater mobility and versatility to the features of traditional remote work. It gives greater flexibility, autonomy, comfort, and work-life balance without necessarily sacrificing on the productivity. In a 2020 survey by Mercer, an HR and consulting firm, 94% of employers say productivity was the same as or higher than before the pandemic, even with employees working remotely. And the number of people working remotely will grow in upcoming years. While some companies used to offer the ability to work from home as a perk, it has now become the norm for most businesses. By 2025, an estimated 70% of the workforce will be working remotely at least 5 days a month. But the benefits of remote or smart work do not come risk-free. As organizations allow a significant part of workforce to remain remote, cybersecurity will become an even greater concern in 2021. In a report authorized by Cisco on the future of secure remote work, 97% of organizations in US made changes in their cybersecurity policies to support remote working. Cybersecurity remain extremely important, or more important than before the pandemic. Cybercrime will cost an estimated $6 trillion to governments, businesses, and individuals next year, resembling in its scope the Wild West in cyberspace. We need to strengthen cybersecurity and promote responsible behavior at all levels and in each organizations and institutions, public and private, if we want to take advantage from smart working. Another growing challenge is the use of our data. In the times of COVID-19 pandemic, when personal real-time data was necessary to effectively track and trace the spread of the virus, people become increasingly worried about the data breaches and misuse of personal data for unjustified purposes. There is a growing demand for all of us to have a greater say about how data is used, including to influence and control behavior. According to estimates, the potential cost of worldwide data breaches will be more than $5 trillion by 2024, and remote work practices have increased the risk of data breaches. The importance on how we manage data will also grow with the use of big data and the rapid spread of artificial intelligence. At the same time, there are legitimate concerns regarding risks associated with handling and processing of data, particularly in light of the current fragmented regulatory landscape and in the absence of a common set of principles based on human rights, data privacy, ethics, and protection. A coordinated approach is required to assure the emergence of frameworks for safe and responsible use of data for the achievement of 2030 agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, but yet there are some types of occupation that simply do not lend themselves to working from home. The jobs of plants operator and machine assembler cannot be done from home, as well as workers in agriculture, in manufacturing industries, in logistics and supply chains. Other jobs require collaboration or using specialized machinery must be done on location. The ILO estimates that of all occupations, approximately 1 in 6 at the global level and just over 1 in 4 in advanced countries can be done remotely. The potential for remote work, according to a recent study by McKinsey, is exceedingly concentrated among highly skilled, highly educated workers in a handful of industries, occupations, and geographies. Only 20% of clerical support workers, for example, are estimated to be able to work from home in low and lower middle income countries compared to the 42% of those in high income countries. Remote work may accentuate inequalities at the social level. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the profound digital divides threatening to become the new face of inequality. More than half the workforce has little or no opportunity for remote work. Many workers have lost their employment or simply do not have access to the internet and technology. Based on 2020 United Nations e-government survey, the average e-government development index for more than 50% of the countries in the world remain well below the global average, and half of the world population is offline or has issues on connectivity and accessibility. This gap points the persistent challenges that continue to undermine the efforts for development of the countries in special groups, and in particular, the least developed states. By 2020, close to 87% of individuals in developed countries use the internet, compared with only 19% in the least developed countries. Achieving real and sustained progress in the various dimensions of digitalization require resources, knowledge, skills, and effective training. The use of digital technologies may create new opportunities for developing countries to bridge the digital divide. However, while developed countries that have existing technological infrastructure experience the benefit for such innovation, many other countries are potentially left behind, adding another dimension to the already widening digital divide. We need for a digital capacity building that is substantial. Ladies and gentlemen, in the world of digital interdependence, addressing these risks and challenges will require significant collaboration. If we want to untap the promise of smart working by employing talent across countries, our regulatory frameworks and labor codes should be compatible. Digital technologies have a cross-border impact, whereas access to internet and technologies, as well as digital policies, regulatory framework, and digital capabilities remain diverse and fragmented. The United Nations Secretary General, in his priorities for 2021, has once again highlighted the importance of digital cooperation. He commended the President of the United Nations General Assembly's intention to hold a debate on digital cooperation in April, and I believe your respective countries' governments will contribute to this debate. The pandemic brought human suffering and forced us to face our weaknesses and vulnerabilities, but it has also uncovered new opportunities for our future development. It strengthened our incentive to further promote the digital transformation and inclusion and come out of this crisis more resilient and people-centric. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development remains our blueprint, setting a course for a healthier and more resilient post-COVID world. Our determination to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, including Goal 8 on promoting full and productive employment and decent work for all is going to make the difference. And smart work is certainly part of the solution. We can take advantage of the pressure this crisis put on all of us to review existing laws and regulations, to foster ICTs, and to promote a digital government-based innovation ecosystem and promote smart working. The COVID-19 recovery plans and funds offer countries the opportunity to build back better, put societies in the track to achieving the SDGs, and create resilience and reduces the vulnerability of society to future shocks. The resources spread for COVID-19 recovery should be used wisely to promote effective, inclusive, and sustainable reform. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of remote and smart work will require many changes, including investing in digital infrastructure and increases access to internet. For most employers, both in public and private sector, having their employees work outside the office will also require reinventing many processes and policies. In conclusion, I would like to leave you with the 3 key questions to consider while shaping our vision on the future of work. First, how could we increase connectivity, improve internet affordability, and proliferate the digital technologies as to make it possible for all the peoples in the world to work and learn remotely? Second, how could we reimagine and expand the workforce now based on a well-paid minority of professionals benefiting from digital remote work to include more and more people? And last, how can we think more strategically about cybersecurity and cyber surveillance to best protect the workers and assets in digital space without infringe rights, privacy, or dignity of workers and citizens? Providing concrete solutions to answer this question will help us to build more resilient, inclusive, and effective societies and workforce. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Vincenzo. Truly an insightful global view of the situation, and definitely something all of the digital government leaders around the world and supporting organizations should look for the near future, inshallah. Thank you, and really appreciate it. Moving to our second panelist, Mr. Ko, he's the Vice President and Head of Department of Data and Platforms, the National Information Society Agency from South Korea. Mr. Ko, Korea is the #1 leading country in the United Nations e-government sub-index on online services, OSI, with a score of 100, and has extensive experience with high level of digitization of government process and social life. Can we say that Korea is perhaps already in a smart work era? Please.
I have to say yes or no, but under this pandemic situation, yes, 100%. I think because of this pandemic situation, all countries, we are pushed to be smart workers. And, maybe I would like to share our experiences with, the slide. Just a second. Okay, can you see my slide? Okay. For smart work in Korea, we had to go back to 2010. That's when the Korean government started smart work. I think I have to explain the background of Korea's smart work adoption. In 2010, Korea had one of the longest working hours for laborers. It was 1.3 times longer than the average of OECD countries. And if you look at the productivity, national productivity, it was half of that of the United States. So the government really wanted to adopt this smart work at the time. Those are the main reasons. And the Korean government identified about 6 types of smart workers, as you can see from the slide. First of all, smart worker centers. Second, work at home, we call telework, or any kind of. And third, smart office. And fourth, flexible working hours. You can work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or what time you would like to pick. And that's flexible working hours, and other things, and mobile office. Those are 6 types of smart workers the Korean government identified. But in 2010, the Korean government really focused on smart worker centers. There are reasons, because if you go to smart worker centers, it had exactly same working environment as government offices. When public officers adopt smart work, they didn't want to, be shocked because the environment was totally different. So Korean government really wanted to focus on smart work centers first, then expand to work at home or smart office and mobile offices. Okay, so this is the National Smart Work Plan the Korean government released in 2010. There are 3 categories. First of all, regulatory change. Second, organizational change. Third, human resource management change. First of all, we, as government officers, we always, work based on legal framework. So if you look at the National Smart Work Plan, the government really focused on making legal preparation for nationwide smart work adoption. They put smart work adoption in the E-Government Act as a decree number 36. And then we have to really try pilot projects. So we selected maybe about 4 ministries to pilot smart work from 2010, 2011. And then nationwide adoption under the control of Smart Worker Committee. There has to be some kind of nationwide government governance for smart work. So we established Smart Work Committee, steering committee, and then we revised the government performance evaluation criteria. So we would like to put, smart work as a performance evaluation, so that government really wanted to push all the government officers to adopt smart work, and so on and so forth. This is the Smart Work Center. We have 17 Smart Work Centers with 67 conference rooms. All Smart Work Centers are located in an area where government officers live closely. Most of government officers live closely. For example, very center of Seoul, or nuclear cities of Seoul, where a lot of government officers live, so that they do not have to transit very long distance. They just go to smart work centers very close to their home, so that they can save commuting time or whatever they want. Sometimes have time, all the finished working time and working smart work centers so that they can go off early and take care of their children and spending time with their families. Okay, so if you look at the bottom of the slide, these are basic facilities, working area. We have PCs, but it has to be virtual desktop, which means if you log onto the desktop, you connect to cloud services for yourself. And when you get off, all the data will be deleted at the moment. So, we kind of get rid of security issues or, some worries. And then network. We physically separated, networks for smart work centers, which means if you go to public internet services, you go to a public line. If you go to government services, you go to government dedicated lines so that we physically separate networks as well. Okay. And then there are three infrastructures for smart work. First of all, GVPN. I think most of people know what GPKI is, but the Korean government established GPKI, which is really dedicated to government services, and GPKI is required. And based on GPKI, the Korean government established GVPN. GVPN can be used only for permitted work related to work management systems, VC, or any kind of government services. If you want to use, you really need to GVPN. Okay, this is the first smart work infrastructure for the government. And second, smart work infrastructure is G-Cloud services. So Korean government has had 4 government data centers. All the systems and services are co-located for those centers, and about 45,000 servers and storages are running at 4 data centers. And then the government, the 4 data centers have converted government business systems to G-Cloud that promotes efficient resource utilization. And currently, 4 government data centers work on implementing an intelligent cloud, which means actually physically there are 4 data centers, but it works as one single data center so that we can manage all government ICT resources efficiently. Now, government data centers provide cloud-based storage services where officers can store data and access wherever they go through GVPN. Okay, and the last smart work infrastructure is blockchain-based MID. If you would like to go out and work, you really need to have some kind of identification to access any kind of government services. So the Korean government now developing mobile ID cards, and it will be issued 15,000 officers, by first quarter of this year, and by June, about 215,000 mobile ID will be issued. And with this mobile, ID, it would be on smartphone so that government officers can access office buildings and smart work centers and access business systems on G-Cloud, such as any kind of any ministerial government services. And as well as mobile ID makes it possible to use multiple agency services at just one authentication so that we don't have to carry a lot of identifications to access it here and there or systems, okay? This is the workflow of DID service floor. Okay, then all with this kind of government, efforts and trials, did it really well. Everybody adopted, all government officers adopted smart services, smart work in Korea? No, not at all. Actually, we really struggled because there are three reasons we struggle. First of all, government officers really worry about getting disadvantaged on performance evaluation and promotion if they work remotely. And second, this is one of the hardest reasons, changing the culture, changing the way of officers work. This is the hardest part of adopting smart work in the government. And third one is security. That's also really a hard one. But this situation changed at all at the early of last year because of COVID-19. If you look at the slide, in last March, the patients, COVID-19 patients rocketed the maximum, and so that government decided 1/3 of the workforce required to work at home. Government had to change everything, and the use of smart work centers close to home or business trip locations we require, and we mandate all government officers to do that. And then increase the use of on-tech work system. If you look at the slide, at the height of the pandemic and the social distancing measure, government VPN subscribers increased by 358%, and actual users increased by about 800%. So it was like high rocketed. And social distancing in workplace. Smart work centers have widened sit spacing and executed alternate sitting with the inserted empty seats. And then we mandated face masking wearing. And this is how the government really expand smart work, and without any kind of problems of doing government business and providing government services to citizens. So, but we really struggled for 10 years to change the way of government officers work. I think that's pretty much our experience for smart work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ko. Truly an inspiring experience. And I remember when we were required to start mobilizing the Saudi government and putting regulations and support in place, one of the most difficult challenges was how to convince the people to work fully on a task base, because this is the only way I can see your results and what our teams are doing, and we can start cascading the whole visual view that we used to have working in an office and working together and while working remotely. So it's truly an interesting experience and an inspiring end-to-end concept. Thank you very much, and wishing Korea's government all the best and continued success.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to Dr. Ahmed Zahrani, our third panelist, and he's the Deputy Minister for Labor Affairs. If you can, Doctor, share with us the Saudi experience and how the government have leveraged its previous investment in digital infrastructure, being able to transform swiftly as soon as the pandemic hit, striked, and we were all forced to move from our office base to our home base with minimal interruption of government services, across the entire government.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good day for all ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to be here today. The year 2020 was a very special year in many aspects. One of them, I was honored to chair the G20 Employment Working Group during 2020. So allow me please to speak little about G20 context, then move to international trend, and then maybe some local context. When we met at late 2019 in Japan, we could not have imagined that how our world would change as a result of COVID-19 and how our labor market and societies would be impacted with these challenges that we would still be facing. That, of course, would include within our labor market nationally and internationally. Just to give you a bit of context, according to ILO latest report, they have published different reports on the impact of COVID on labor market. Around 8.8% of global working hours were lost during 2020. That is equivalent to more than 255 million full-time jobs during that year. And these working hours losses, they are approximately 4 times greater than the loss in global financial crisis in 2009, just to give you the severity of this pandemic on the labor market. Of course, young people, particularly women, they remain exposed to particularly high risk, and we need to do all that we can to protect and promote their interest. I particularly mention young people and women because these are the particular kind of categories that you find in informal work, in platform employment, and in work that is really affected by changes in technology. So technological and informational evolution, of course, has changed our labor market. New forms of work are emerging without the proper social protection, and with the changes in the preference like flexible work, remote work, cultural and behavioral changes as well. We as a government, we need to be adaptive. We need to anticipate change and come up with the right, let's say, legal framework and incentives for both employers and employees to be active in the labor market. One of the examples that I might come back to later on, as a Ministry of Human Resource, previously it was Ministry of Labor, we've been trying to promote the kind of style of teleworking for many years, and it was not regulation, more of initiatives and incentives and some kind of subsidies for this kind of work. We could not achieve a lot before COVID, and with the COVID, all of a sudden, everyone is working on the remote mode. And as the chair mentioned, I think Saudi government has achieved good reputation in terms of quick response to different measures to mitigate the risk of the COVID. One of them is the health and safety of the workers themselves, and also the measures of the teleworking and the continuity of services. Globally, as we know, advancement in many aspects have created challenges and opportunities and more dynamic labor markets. Countries across the world are looking to implement strategies that improve both the employment prospects, especially, as I mentioned, young men and women, and also the productivity of enterprises. I mentioned productivity because technological changes change the way we work. And of course, we need to look for the skill strategies and reskilling and to keep our people within the labor market and have inclusive labor market. Central to these policies and strategies around the world is a solid foundation of core skills as a key factor of employability. Along with these, of course, comes program related to education, related to availability of training opportunities, and motivation, ability to support and take advantage of opportunities for continuous learning. So social protection coverage policies is a key for inclusivity in the labor market. In the G20 also context, Saudi proposed as a presidency, we proposed 3 priorities. One was youth, and we come up as an outcome youth roadmap of 2025, and also social protection, especially for the new pattern of work. As we know, many of the new pattern of work, especially gig economy, digital platform, usually they are a kind of informal work, so you don't find a lot of rights and protection for employment there. So that was one of our priorities and topic within G20 during 2020. And we agreed with the rest of the members that on different options for policies to increase coverage and to include different form of work. Third priority, which is also very important, we agreed on exploring the behavioral insight as a key to look for the biases and to support job seekers and to support employees and employers in making the right choices. So we agreed on establishment of the G20 Employment Behavioral Insight Network, and also the establishment of Riyadh Behavioral Insight Center. We think behavior is very important, and attitude. We look for those dimensions, and we could improve our policies, basically simplifying the choices, make it clear, and use some of the behavioral insight tools like social norm and role model to try to influence for positive influence, of course, the right choices for employment. Within the local context, also recently the government has approved a labor market strategy. Within the labor market strategy, this is the first time we approve a labor market strategy. It's not ministry strategy. It's a reform-based strategy. World Bank was a very important partner with us on that strategy. One of the pillars is called skills and values, where we look into future skills, where we look into technological impact, into the attitude, the behavior, and the planning of also training and skilling and reskilling. One of the initiatives that is interesting that I mentioned at the beginning of my speech is the telework program. This telework program is an initiative that is supported by the ministry. Basically is to create a flexible work environment for job seeking, and also with particular focus on women and individuals with special needs and those living in rural areas. That was the original thinking, that we thought maybe only special kind of, or let's say different kind of individuals might need to be teleworking. Someone in a remote area, there is not a lot of economic activities, or maybe some disabled employees, they are not, they cannot move around easily, or some women who prefer not to move to other cities for employment. So we come up with this initiative maybe 8 years ago. So now you see, I mean, our thinking was maybe limited that time. Now everybody is needing telework. Now it's a new style of work, whether it's in the government or in the private sector. So we're trying to support this now with many regulation. One of the things we established a company entity called Future Work that look for different programs, whether it's a telework, whether it's gig employment, platform employment, and any other type of emerging future kind of work or new pattern of work. And we try to have more social protection coverage for that. And we try to promote this kind of work style as a new and permanent working style. Thank you very much. I thought I would like only to share some of the local context and G20 context. I hope I was able to convey the message of the G20 and what Saudi government, represented by the ministry, is focusing on right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Truly an insightful view, especially on the G20, when we talk about the top governments and nations around the world having to come unified on a single file, such as labor and work. This is definitely one of the top priorities. If you would allow me, Dr. Ahmed, just a small question, a follow-up question. What would be the top opportunity to help leapfrog to smart government in Saudi Arabia? What would be our top opportunity? If I can ask you to say one or two, what would you say?
If I could answer on the top of my head, one of the, let's say, I could see most important opportunity is Saudi is a young country in terms of demographics. You do have 60% of people below or under the age of 30, and you do it's a vast country in terms of size. So I think digitalization there and technological solution would help really, especially in the employment of the remote area, if I could say it, or rural areas. And these opportunities is very important to look at demographics and digitization and especially solutions for those remote places.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And actually, this adds some burden on MCIT and the telecom and service providers as well, because this is part of, so it's all a collaborative work between the different government agencies and even the private sector. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed, for your insight. Truly an interesting insight. Now, moving for our fourth panelist, Mr. Clay Lin, the Director of Information Technology Services, the World Bank. Mr. Clay, thank you for joining us. With more than 240 locations for the World Bank across the world, and I believe 30,000 plus workers around the world. With this pandemic, can you share the views of how the World Bank, ongoing basis have managed to properly develop the smart work policy or plans and your enhanced digital capabilities that managed to help you survive and overcome this pandemic?
Thank you, Hisham. Can you hear me? Okay. Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Clay Lin. I am a Director of Information Technology Services from the World Bank Group. I'm very honored and happy to give you a presentation to share our experience. How do we transform and transfer through this pandemic into a work from home environment? And let me share my presentation. Okay, so I will start by giving all of us a quick view of our World Bank Group IT landscape and cybersecurity threat. As you can see on the screen, this is a snapshot of our entire environment. As Hisham just mentioned, we have over 30,000 people, over 240 locations around the world. And at any given time, if you would notice, we have 1/4 of a workforce traveling at any given time. And so that's about 8,000 people. And we have over 36,000 endpoints, 27,000 mobile devices. And on an annual basis, we receive 1.2 billion incoming emails from outside. So as you can see, this is a large and very distributed environment connecting different people, locations with different products or services, if you would. And even prior to the pandemic, we have a huge and constant demand of remote access anytime, anywhere in from the world. Now, how do we build this capacity prior to the pandemic? It's actually a 20-year journey to meet the requirement. So as you can see just now from the last slide, we're very distributed. So we took the approach to build remote access capabilities throughout the world with 3 major locations. So one in Washington, DC, the other one in Chennai, India, and the third one is Paris in France. And we provide remote access at that time, mainly for traveling users, as well as users who may occasionally work from home. And we also have load balance capabilities between different regions. So depending on where you are traveling, if you're traveling, for example, in Europe, you will be connected to our Paris center and then connect back to our network. So we started this build out of business continuity in 2001, and the history of this evolution of business continuity capability and capacity is actually defined by 3 phases, as you can see on the screen. So we established the program with dedicated budget, and then we assemble the team, and we conduct annual exercises to make sure things are working fine. And we, from time to time, activate the crisis response team to test how well they respond to the crisis. And do they have the right skills to respond to crisis? And then in about 5 to 6 years ago, we actively start adopting cloud-based technologies and services. And we do all of this just to make sure we meet our business requirements, which is to ensure whenever there's a disaster strikes, we are able to continue our critical applications and processes. We still provide a way for all of our workers to be able to continue to work or connect to critical services from around the world. And this is all done by under the guidance of our digital transformation strategy. So there's 3 main pillars in our strategy. We focus on building the right culture to grow talented, experienced, and committed people. And then we leverage, for example, like cloud-based services to establish agile delivery model while you can still build agile delivery model without the cloud, but cloud actually allow you to do it faster with scale. And then through cloud and other on-prem type of services, we deliver product and services to our users. So they are our employees, they are our contingent workers. And so we're operating by the principle of solution for business. We're very customer oriented. We listen to our users, we listen to all the concerns, and we address them. And we do it in a very cost efficient way. And we also take care of the basics. And we are hoping to produce the outcome which enables the business, empower our users, and we increase the resilience of critical services. Now, here comes the pandemic. Prior to 2020, I have used 2 slides to cover how we have built up. But that's not enough. Actually, when the pandemic hit us, we heard the news about the pandemic or the possibility of the pandemic in January. We started to take action. So we activated what we call the level 1 response of the business continuity program. So we expand our monitoring and reporting to understand how serious this pandemic could be, how widespread it has been. And immediately we established a special remote access gateway in our Beijing office for our Chinese colleagues to access our critical services. This is to ensure uninterrupted services will be delivered to our colleagues in China. And then comes March 2020, when it's been widespread throughout the world, we established a dedicated COVID-19 team, and we operate on a daily basis. Every morning we have morning call to understand where things are. At the end of the day, we convene again to understand what has been done, what's the progress, what's the situation, what's the next step, what are the decisions we have to make. Then we also quickly put together different teams with different expertise to focus on different areas. So for example, we are actually, even if we have built out the remote access capability for our traveling users, we don't have enough for the entire World Bank group of 30,000 users. So we quickly assemble teams to do the build out. And we have training specialists to make sure that we provide the training material, because not every user is familiar with the remote work culture and the toolkits available to them. And then when March the 12th, 2020 comes, we activated to level 3 response. And this is the time we actually are told to, we are shutting down the bank, all facilities worldwide, you go home and work from home. And this is, so you can see we have very short time, about less than 2 months to build this out. And these efforts are actually marked by some key events, such as in February, we announced work from home right away for our Beijing office. And then we, starting in March 1st, we conducted many exercises in preparation of the actual shutdown of the entire World Bank facilities. And then on March 12th, when it's announced suspension of all mission travel and everybody goes home to work from home, we are ready. And I actually can give you some numbers here. So prior to the pandemic, our VPN capability is about 14,000 sessions maximum. So that's actually more than enough to support our traveling users, but that's not enough to support our entire bank employees. And prior to the pandemic, we have about WebEx session on a monthly basis, 39,000 sessions WebEx. But right after the pandemic hit us, we have built up the capacity for VPN at 22,000 sessions per day. On average, we are seeing 17,000 sessions connected, and it peaks to 20,000 per day from time to time. As of the end of December, we have a total monthly WebEx sessions of 124,000, and we have a 77,000 team sessions. Those are the tools we provided by the adoption of cloud to quickly scale up to meet our remote work from home demand. Now, I'm not going through every bit of detail here, but I do want to highlight a few areas. First of all, is as we are building out the capacity to meet the expected demand from everyone works from home, we build visual dashboards to ensure we can keep track of equipment, trouble calls to help desk, and the personnel activities. Those dashboard helps greatly in terms of to see where things are. So we know how many people are connecting to WebEx. We know how many people are connecting to VPN. at any given time. So that helped our decision-making greatly. And the other effort we focus is on communication to our users. So you don't want to turn the service up without telling users where and how to connect them. So we produce a lot of short time video clips posted on our website. So the users can actually watch short video to learn how to use, for example, secure ID tokens. How do you navigate around your computer, to click on what buttons to get connected to our VPN services. When you have a trouble, who do you call and how do you get help? And we also have flyers, we have PDF files sent to the users. We even built a mobile app to tell users how to navigate during this work from home environment. So as a result, since March 2020, we have issued more than 13,000 secure ID tokens. We have issued 3,500 mobile devices and 4,300 laptops to meet the demand from the entire World Bank Group. Okay, so now we are still in the pandemic, and we actually expect, even when the pandemic is over, a good portion of our people will still choose to work from home. So this is how we envision the future. So there are 4 elements here. We need to make sure security is built in everything we are providing. And for modern operating capability, throughout the pandemic, in the build out, in meeting the demand, we are more committed to adopt innovative solutions from the cloud to make sure we can meet the demand, expected or unexpected. And then we're going to provide innovative business solutions. For example, we're thinking about chatbot, we're thinking about drone, we're thinking about IoT, we're thinking about AR, VR-based technology for online conferences, just to give you some example. And then obviously diverse workforce planning. We need people with who are well-versed with the technology, who are very committed, and we need them from around the globe. And this is the last slide to summarize the key takeaways from the presentation. So I divided this into 2 parts. On the right-hand side, you can see it's more technology related. So you need to have some adaptive governance structure to make quick decisions under the guidance of a visionary leadership team. And you need to have flexible architecture so you can make changes quickly. It has to be secure by design. And you have to use digital tools to automate and provide data-driven services to the user to draw their own conclusion to make decisions. On the left-hand side, we want to make sure we can build an agile culture. So we need to reskill the personnel to meet the new demand and to be able to handle the unexpected. And those people need to be self-learning and self-sufficient. And what do I mean by self-sufficient? So for example, during work from home, even our president, the president of the World Bank Group, has to learn how to troubleshoot the printer in his house. So more and more you can see users cannot just relying on call to somebody or physically presence of a help desk personnel in the office to help the person with basic questions. The person has to be self-sufficient. And obviously last one, which is shared responsibility. This is one thing that we cannot emphasize enough. In this environment where users have a lot of control of technologies and products and services and device, they need to own the responsibility. They need to follow the policy, they need to follow the guidance, they need to be disciplined. With that said, I conclude my presentation. Back to Hisham. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Clay. Truly a very interesting experience with such a global organization and, you know, operating across the world where the pandemic has been just, you know, overtaking the whole world and truly an amazing experience. With that, I would conclude the first panel, and I would like to give our appreciation and thanks for our esteemed panelists, Mr. Vincenzo Acquaro, Mr. Yoon Seong-ko, and Dr. Ahmed Al-Zahrani, Mr. Clay Lin. Thank you, gentlemen, for your participation and truly an insightful panel that we had. We now move to the second panel of discussion today, rethinking remote work for a digital future. In this panel, I will have two KSA participants who will discuss how to rethink remote work for a digital future where Saudi Arabia aims at being among the leading countries in e-government. With the very ambitious digital strategies for KSA, how does this translate to the future of work? I would like to welcome Mrs. Dima Al-Yahya and Mr. Faris Al-Sagari. Mrs. Dima Al-Yahya is the Secretary General of the Digital Cooperation Organization, or known as DCO. DCO was recently founded by 5 nations, Middle East nations, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Pakistan, and Jordan, and are actively reaching out to other countries to join. DCO's vision is achieving prosperity, social stability, and growth of the digital economy by unifying efforts to advance digital transformation and promote common interests. Their primary goals are empowering women, youth, and entrepreneurs, growing the digital economy, leapfrogging with innovation. Ms. Dima, thank you for joining us today. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and definitely what has been said so far is very inspiring and very insightful. We have been working for a long time on digital solutions, digital transformation, but the mere core challenge that we always face is adoption. So the pandemic came when we were hit by the pandemic. That accelerated the adoption, and which it was an unfortunate situation, definitely, but also a fortunate situation for digital leaders, where it was very hard to, and as the distinguished speakers previously mentioned, changing the cultures and changing the mindset of the workers, either from government or private sector, from their usual ways of doing business and working to this new method of productivity, which needed a lot of time. So that pandemic really helped in accelerating the change. And it showed us a lot of character as well, that the change of that, or the adoption of people was very fast. That means that it was a mindset, and gives us a lot of indication on really how to think of the future of work, not only the beginning of the life of a worker, but before that, when a person is in school, actually, and adopting that mindset of using digital technologies and being more productive using the tools, the digital tools that they have in place. A very huge concern that I think we have now is, yes, the pandemic came, with the pandemic came the acceleration of the adoption of digital work, or sorry, remote working. But what is after that, or what's after the pandemic? Are we in a state where we can sustain that culture and sustain that mindset? And this is where we see some of the government entities have adopted and are continuing to adopt this type of work, and others went more into, or went back to their routine kind of working. So I think the challenge that we have, and we have to look at not only in Saudi, but also in a worldwide perspective, on how can we sustain that adoption. This is one. And the second is when it comes to remote working, we've seen that, yes, digital technologies have helped and supported in terms of being connected and being more productive, like we're having this webinar right now, which is that the exchange of ideas and exchange of lessons learned. But also, how can we, with the power of technology and new technologies like the power of AI and IoT, communicate the experience of a worker? What was missing as in being in the office and being online? How can we reflect the same feeling and the emotions and the same interaction and networking that we have when we meet in corridors and we discuss very urgent matters, or and that connectivity and feel we transform it to in technical capabilities. So we have very powerful technologies like AR, VR, holograms. How are we adopting these technologies and creating innovative digital solutions that will not only increase the productivity of a worker, but also change the experience of a worker? The third thing that I wanted to really highlight is the concept of the gig economy and how it was looked at before as mostly for blue-collar jobs, and how can we increase that methodology to expand that pool into also the professionals. After the pandemic, a lot of not only government but private sector have been hit from an economical perspective, and here is where we find, and we are in need for the private sector to transform quickly, and for them to do that, they need to invest in technology, and that investment needs capital. With the pandemic, they have lost that capability. So one of the solutions is to let go from a lot of the workers, especially the very highly paid professionals. So we have that's one. Second, we have very rare jobs like data scientists and AI specialists, and whom are they're very minimal as a number, and they're very highly paid, which a lot of enterprises and also governments don't afford. So how can we expand that gig economy methodology and mindset to be more than just for the blue collar jobs and the much easier adaptable jobs to a more professional jobs? For example, let's take on teachers. A lot of the private sector schools have let go from a lot of their teachers, where that knowledge or them as teachers are in need. Creating that the policies and regulations that enable teachers not only to work in one school, but work in multiple schools based on lessons, that will sustain her income as a teacher or his income as a teacher, and also the school will not lose the number of teachers, and also will reduce the spending that they spend on highly paid teachers. So these are the three main points that I wanted to get us thinking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Dima. Now, something that was mentioned earlier by Mr. Vincenzo from the United Nations, and I wanted to get your thoughts on, especially as an expert in the field and the Secretary General of DCO. How can we secure that the future of smart work is inclusive and leaves no one behind, with a special focus on women and vulnerable groups?
That's a really great question, and we have been facing a lot of challenges when it comes to women specifically, and I think the first enabler for enabling remote work is connectivity, and making sure that we increase connectivity. It's forecasted in 2030 that 380 million women will not have access to internet, which is a huge number and a scary one as well. Let alone that when women are not connected to the net, then how about youth as well? So I think the most important thing is thinking of connectivity and ways on how to accelerate the achieving the ITU and also United Nations goals when it comes to connectivity. When it comes to DCO, Digital Cooperation Organization, definitely we are looking into the infrastructure, which is connectivity, also the data flows and human capital as enablers for the acceleration of digital economy for the 5 founding members, and connectivity is on the top of the list. Also, in addition to that, what we have to look at is not just providing the connectivity, but how can we increase the adoption? So it's not enough that we provide internet for women and youth, but also how are they benefiting from it as well, using it as a tool for them, not only to seek for a job, but also to create their own jobs as well. And this is a mindset and a mentality that we really have to work on from a grassroots perspective, and enabling the women and youth, not from a policy and regulation perspective, but also from initiatives that will support, with the partnership of the private sector, in increasing the opportunities, and also in exciting and stimulating that mindset into go to considering using digital technology for future of work.
Perfect, and honestly, very inspiring. I'm sure under DCO, with the support of the founding nations, with your leadership and cooperation with the relevant international organizations such as the United Nations and World Bank and others, I'm sure all of these goals will be definitely achieved, inshallah, for the good of humankind. Thank you very much, Mrs. Dima. Moving now to our second guest, Mr. Faris Al-Sag'abi, Assistant Deputy Minister, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology for Future Jobs. Briefly now, the human capital is the cornerstone of development process and enabling the journey of digital transformation. And therefore, MCIT has given specific attention to digital capabilities, as it has developed specific programs to qualify human capital in the sector, and regardless whether it's the government or the private sector, but in general. And this is now becoming one of the top priorities, goals and pillars of the ambitious strategy for the development of telecommunication information technology sector that was recently adopted and approved. And this is well aligned with the Kingdom's ambitious Vision 2030. Mr. Faris, glad to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us, and I leave the floor to you, please.
Thank you, Hisham, for having me today to give me an opportunity to focus on the human capital development. As you mentioned, and Dima also mentioned, it's the cornerstone for any development process in any nation. So thank you very much again.
طيب, حياك الله. So let me start with something that is core to your operation and focus, in the ministry. What are the digital capabilities and tools that have been secured for government officials for remote work?
Okay, thank you, Hisham. First of all, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to spare our nation all harms. And we thank our leadership for all the measures that have been taken to ensure the safety of citizens and residents. Also, many thanks to all the field heroes in the sectors of security, health and education, as well as my colleagues in the communication and the information technology sector. As we know, Saudi Arabia is undertaking ambitious social transformation to drive diversification across its economy. With the government today, government now is shaping to be more an enabler and facilitator through the issue of policies and regulations, in addition to fund as well. Driving Vision 2030 are, as we know, 13 nationwide programs, the most critical of which are the Human Capital Development Program, which is led by His Royal Highness, and also the National Transformation Program, which has digital transformation at its heart. So digital transformation is a critical component when it comes to creating a vibrant society, thriving economy, and ambitious nation. These three key ambitions of Vision 2030. Today, as also Dima mentioned, we have a strong digital infrastructure in Saudi Arabia. The internet reaches 99% of all populated areas in the kingdom, either through the mobile broadband or fiber-based broadband connectivity. As we speak today, the average mobile and fixed broadband speeds are around 70 megabits per second, almost 20 times faster than they were 3 years ago. Ranking us the 5th globally as per latest report from Speedtest. Now we are the 4th fastest growing 5G rollout in the world, and today 5G service is live in 35 cities and growing in the kingdom. We believe in digital infrastructure is both a social equalizer and economic multiplier. When we speak about a social equalizer, during the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown, for example, Sahha app delivered almost 30 million virtual consultations and enabled the issue of 1.7 million digital prescriptions. Schools also were able to be online for 6 million students through Madrasati, the e-learning platform. It may have started as a remote learning solution, but it will shape the future and create a new generation of digital first youth. For the future skills and capacity development, and as part of the kingdom's continuous efforts to empower local and global talents to come up with digital solutions that help overcome the current crisis of COVID-19 pandemic and facing future crises, we have launched Hope Hackathon, in which we targeted digital health, e-gaming, and home entertainment, where over 15,000 digital innovators from 80 countries around the world has participated, and the outcome were promising. Also, we launched a digital volunteerism campaign, Kuluna Ata, in cooperation with a number of NGOs, public and private entities, to ensure digital equity and the continuation of education for low-income people and students, where we have received more than 30,000 tablets for students in need and more than 110,000 data SIMs free of charge, and in partnership with CITC and with telecom companies. The data use is free for accessing the key healthcare distance education platforms. So we were able to serve the education sector by connecting students with their teachers. For the interim, to address the challenge of building digital skills, we launched a multi-phase program to train 40,000 nationals and create 20,000 jobs in the ICT sector by 2021. And alhamdulillah, in the first round of the program so far, we have created jobs for more than 11,000 and trained more than 33,000 trainees, mostly in the areas of data science, AI, and IoT. Moreover, through the Future Skills Initiative and Digital Digital Initiative, we have provided distance training, meetups, and digital awareness lectures to over than 4 million people.
Thank you, Faris. Thank you. So when we talk about future skills and future jobs, which is one of the areas of focus under your leadership in the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, there is definitely a cultural change across the entire spectrum about either the government or the private and public sector, and even on citizens and individual basis. How would it be possible to address this cultural change needed also in the different branches of the government or the private sector, just to accept the concept of, yes, the future skill set required and the future jobs or jobs of the future?
Okay, if we review, Hisham, with you and the esteemed guests, examples of sectors that have benefited from the virtual work and virtual meetings that have been implemented starting with COVID-19 pandemic. When we are talking about education, the lockdown placed an instant anticipated demand on working parents who were suddenly expected to supervise their children's schooling. For education providers, it tested their e-education readiness regarding technology and the ability of teachers and the student to engage in virtual classes and examinations. So the successes and challenges of this experiment produced valuable evidence about how to develop a blended digitalized learning model, combining conventional classroom learning with AI, IoT, augmented reality, and other emerging technologies. Also regarding the healthcare, in the short term, the lockdown was a reality check for whether telemedicine technologies and treatments were an effective substitute for face-to-face patient-doctor consultations. For healthcare providers, these new ways of remote working also advanced the regularity and policy issues in areas such as patient confidentiality and clinical accountability, as both public and private sector providers wrestled with the pandemic's disruption of supply chains. Despite of these short-term challenges, lockdown established the cost effectiveness of digital healthcare, efficiency of remotely managed treatments, and the critical role of digital technology in diseases forecasting and prevention. Also, when we are talking about any different sectors, for example, the commerce also was suffering during the lockdown. The challenge faced by e-commerce providers was avoid overloaded channels due to unprecedented demand. Workforce availability was also an ongoing problem across the e-commerce value chain, from warehousing to deliveries. There were more than 20 delivery platforms and applications approved working throughout the day, even during the curfew when the pandemic was starting. Also, we have launched an initiative with HRDF to support the employees of delivery application with some financial incentives. you know, Hisham, we are all well aware of digital government transformation on the future of smart work and the current and economic difficulties during the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. This will mean that we need to get extra creative and aggressive efforts in our digital methods and ideas. However, smart work strategies should consider employee engagement and experience, employees' personas, metrics to mentor and measure and evaluate the remote work system. Also, the change management, organizational change, training by using new technologies and tools. Also, knowledge, last but not least, the technology. And I think we have reached the maturity level after the pandemic to adopt smart work environments.
Thank you, Faris. So if I hear you well, I can say that both on the government and the community or the public, they have accepted the cultural change for the future for the future jobs or the future skill set required. Can we say that we are there yet, or we still have a way ahead of us to reach that level of maturity and acceptance on different level and different spectrums of the government and the private and public life?
You know, we read a lot of reports such as WIF report that told that 35 of current digital skills will be disrupted by 2020. And we couldn't imagine how that will happen. But now, after the pandemic started, I think people get forced to believe in digital transformation. And that is our job, and also yes, the job to, you know, promote the digital transformation. And you know, by as I mentioned about our strong infrastructure in the kingdom, especially, I think we are in a good situation to accept the you know, smart work, and people also, they get using the digital tools, even when we are talking about senior people, the old people, also the youth as well.
Perfect. I think, alhamdulillah, I think we've come a long way. And as everyone around the world have witnessed this, the pandemic have actually pushed everyone to the extreme limits. You're talking governments, you're talking private, on a personal level, even probably not official meetings, but we've seen personal family and friend gatherings established over the supporting platforms for visual meetings. And now it's really becoming a norm, not to allow the interruption that occurred by COVID. Thank you very much, Mr. Faris Al-Saghawi, Assistant Deputy Minister, Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, for your insightful participation about the future skills and future jobs in this industry. Mrs. Dima Al-Yahya, if you have a closing remark for this second session, please feel free to share with us.
Well, thank you so much. I would like to thank you and thank the organizers for a great, insightful session. The takeaway that I would just emphasize on this is, although it's a challenging time, but also with challenges comes opportunities. So it is the time for where we really try to think hard and put on the creative hats and stimulate more our digital innovation. And how can we sustain the positive impact that happened throughout this pandemic to the good for digital innovation? And how can we create not only solutions, technology solutions, but methods that would look at the benefit of our increasing our productivity and also our efficiency in terms of the way that we do work. Also, when it comes to looking at new ways of commercializing solutions and how, from a technology perspective, how can we work collaboratively in creating new commercial methods, not only in a country or local national perspective, but a multilateral perspective. As everyone knows, digital transformation is all about a human-centric approach. And this is our time to really demonstrate that, remove all borders and boundaries, and work together in collaboration to achieve the highest impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dima, and thank you for the second panelists. And with this, I come to our closing of this event today. I would like to thank all of our esteemed guests, panelists, our viewers from around the world, whomever is joining us today and attending, all of those who supported the preparation and planning and execution of this event. I would like to give the final words to Engineer Ali and Michelle from the World Bank. Please, the mic is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you, Hisham. I believe this webinar has been fruitful and beneficial for all of us. And I would like to express my deep respect and thanks to all the participants of this for their great contribution. I believe that what we have learned and shared in this webinar from the United Nations team, World Bank, DCO, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia will really help a lot of government agencies and private sector by sharing successful case studies that really ensured business continuity and really paved the way towards a world-class digital transformation, and how this digital revolution happened and COVID should sustain in the next couple of years, and we build accordingly. So finally, on behalf of the Saudi government program, I would like also to thank seasonally our partners in the World Bank, hoping that our partnership will last a long time to achieve its intended objective. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. Mr. Michel?
Yes, let me join Engineer Ali in thanking all the speakers and participants, as well as yourself, Hisham, for the great moderation. It was an inspiring and very rich exchange today, and it seems to me that there is a shared view that smart work is an important and great opportunity for the future of work. And what we have learned from the COVID experience, and we have seen how fast organizations have adapted to the changing situation, it is very clear that we are just looking at the beginning of a very large shift in the culture and organization around smart work. It's great that we are exchanging on this agenda together with Saudi Arabia government and YESER in particular, because what we are looking for in the future is for new and very effective ways of enabling remote work. So I concur with Engineer Ali that this is a very exciting journey, and we look forward to continuing it together with YESER and our colleagues in the KSA. Thank you once again very much for the participants and for the speaker. It was a very nice event and very enriching for all of us. Thank you.
Once again, thank you very much, everyone, for our participants, our supporters, and our viewers. And till we meet again in our upcoming event, stay well and stay safe. Goodbye, all.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.